really live now. Here we go. Okay, it's been a few days. We've slowed things down around here, mainly because there's a little tournament called the Austin Major going on. I have not been recording as many episodes because we've been watching that all day. And now we're back for laying it down with Big D, and here I am today, joined by another player, competitor, all-around Counter-Strike enthusiast, Mr. Cole Anderson. Cole, how are we doing today?
You know, this has been what's getting me through the day today. I was at work trucking along, and I was like, "Oh man," but I get to go on laying it down with Big D later. So, nothing but happy right now.
I like that. Well, and you said you started a new job. What are you doing now? Are you allowed to tell us, or is it a big secret?
Yeah, I can tell you. So basically, I've been working with my brother. He's a master electrician. I've been working with him for a while. He's, sometimes has some of his own stuff going on. So, I decided, to step away from the nepotism and find my own job. Basically, doing the same thing, just at a different company. So, I'm basically helping with logistics and whatnot with setting up stuff. So nothing crazy, just the plumbers and electricians of
I was
NACS
gonna
are
say
rising up.
plumbers and
We're rising up.
electricians. Rise
Yeah,
up. Electrician gang, here we come, dude. That's
that's
sick.
right. Yeah.
Dude, well, that's a cool job. That's a cool job, and obviously one of those fields that no matter how integrated with AI and whatnot we get, electricians will have to do an electrician's job.
That's right.
So you're learning an important skill there. Now,
Yep.
that's a perfect segue into Counter Strike. I no, it's not. We'll work on those. But we we've got let's go. You've been playing Counter Strike for a while now. We were discussing pre-recording that we're both old heads here. How
Yeah.
take us back in time. What's your earliest memory of game? Let's start with gaming in general, and then how did you land in Counter Strike?
Oh my, gaming in general. Um, my brother. He's like 8 years older than me, so he's what? He's 36. I'm 20. I'm 28. He's 36. And growing up, he always had all. He would buy whatever systems came out, and I was growing up. So I think the first one he had was he had a Sega Genesis. I think it was his first one, but I was really young for that, so I didn't really play anything there. Um, and then he got a PlayStation 2. That was like the big thing. Like when the PS2 came out, it was huge, right? I remember they had those big fat like memory sticks that held like 64 megabytes of data. It was like how they're tiny. And I remember playing Madden, like the football game, and playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And then the first online shooter I ever played was actually SOCOM 2, which was like a Navy SEAL game. And it was a third person shooter. I remember it so vividly. And it was like very early online like gaming, and I was full on like squeaker on the mic. I remember I had access to a microphone, and I would be talking to like grown adults who were playing SOCOM, and like they were probably like, "Who the hell is letting this kid play this video game and talk to me with his high ass voice?" And I remember playing that. That was probably the first online game I had. And then I played a bunch of Call of Duty on Xbox 360 growing up. By the time I was like a teenager and like kind of old enough to like save birthday money up or do whatever, get like ask for an Xbox for Christmas or whatever. Um, Played a bunch of Call of Duty. I was really probably pretty good at that. I played with my buddies a lot, and I was always the best of the bunch. And I dabbled in game battles and stuff as like a teenager, but it was all console. Nothing really super competitive, but I've always been a pretty competitive person, so it ended up being that way. And then by the time I got to high school, my brother had moved on from um, consoles, and he started building computers, and he was very uh, inclined when it came to PC stuff. So I would just play on his computer when he wasn't home. So that would include League of Legends in its early days. I played a lot of League of Legends back then. Um, and even before that, I think it was like pre CS:GO. I believe Source. I remember playing on his computer. I mean, oh man, I think even I played 1.6 when I was a kid. when he on like a shitty computer that we had, like a family PC we had that my brother had bought like a physical disc of Counter-Strike on and put on, and he would set up like bots for me, and I would like run around shooting bots, and I think I was really young for that. Um, but yeah, by the time he got a PC, he started playing Counter-Strike again, and I hadn't played a whole lot, but you know, I was working on making my own money to build my own computer, and you know, I didn't really. I think I spent like $500 on my first computer. Like I like saved up some money and then like asked as like a gift from my parents. I was like 14 or 15. I was like, give me like $200 to like build the whole thing, and I remember I had such a shitty setup. It was like it was like a 3 generation old i5 with like 4 gigs of RAM and like 32-bit Windows, and I was like pretty much only playing League of Legends. That's all I played. And then the next time I upgraded, I started playing Counter Strike again because my brother was playing, and he had always been better than me at the game. And then when CS:GO came out, I started playing that, and it took me not very long to end up being better than him. And he had played pretty much his whole, you know, teenager up to that point life. So that's probably how I started on CS.
Is that I'm I've I've talked to other people about this, and there's always the if you're a little bit younger and you got into Counter Strike, there's some like Minecraft to Counter Strike pipeline. But if you're a little bit older, it's your story. It's the my older brother played
Yeah.
Counter Strike, and then I needed to get better than him eventually, right? Like so. I think that's but what you also mentioned is the fact that you played SOCOM. I never played SOCOM back in the day because it was prior to like that was when I was my parents didn't let me on the internet till I was like 14, 15 years old. They were like, "No, you do not need to be on the internet with those creeps." And little do they know, I am the internet now. But the SOCOM was one of those games that I just remember hearing about, and that's like probably something that gave you a lot of experience on having good communication in gaming. I don't know how good you were at it as a little kid, but like if you were on the mic trying to make comms and learn that, that probably gave you a decent foundation for Counter Strike. Or am I overthinking that?
I mean, I hadn't considered it, but that's definitely a possibility. I have like a core memory associated with SOCOM 2. I remember, God, I remember it so vividly too. I remember playing, and you know that game was, if I'm remembering correctly, was similar to Counter Strike in that you don't regenerate health, right? So if you're injured, you just stay to that level of HP. You don't regain it. And I remember trying to explain to my teammates how much health I had. And I was like, I remember saying, and you know, back then in my head, I didn't have a high voice. It was just my voice. That's exactly how I thought everyone sounded. But how I sounded to them was probably ridiculous. And I remember explaining to them, and keep in mind, I was probably in grade school. I couldn't have been like more than like second grade or first grade, like 7 or 8 years old at most. And I remember being like, you know, if the health bar is like out of 10, I'm at like a 3 out of 10 right now. I remember like explaining the whole process of like how much health I had, and I was just like doing fractions. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like just a second grader trying to tell you like I have 3/10 of my HP left, guys. Like, and it's just I don't know why that's what I always think of when I think of SOCOM, because it was SOCOM 2. I remember that was a SOCOM 2, U.S. Navy SEALs, and like the picture of it was a guy in one of the boonie hats with like a M4 with a suppressor on it, and I was just like, this game's so sick. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I wasn't allowed to play M-rated games when I was a kid. Although my parents did let me play the hell out of the Splinter Cell games, though. Maybe they were rated T for teen. I don't remember.
They might have been. They might have been.
They might have. Yeah, because I think they were. But the Ghost Recon and some of the Ghost Recon games were T for teen. But Rainbow Six was rated M, and I wasn't allowed to play those.
Yeah, Splinter Cell was rated T for teen. You hit it. You bang on. That's crazy.
Well, and they were violent games. I mean, you were going
Yeah,
around
yeah.
and shooting people and like tactical espionage at a global scale with all these, you know, powers intermingling and you disrupting it. It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
no, you were like a
surprised.
covert operator. Like you were just doing stuff. That's wild.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
I
wild.
remember. God, I remember when Modern Warfare 2 came out, and like that was like the peak of Call of Duty. And I remember,
The original Modern Warfare 2, not Modern Warfare 2
yeah, yeah.
2022.
Well, I mean, my first Call of Duty I played, like that I played, was Call of Duty 4. Um, and then
2007.
yeah, and then I had played like Call of Duty 2 and 3, but I was like younger, so I hadn't played that online. But when I got my Xbox 360, I played Call of Duty 4, and I played the shit out of Call of Duty 4. Um, and then World at War, I played a bunch of that, and then Modern Warfare 2 is probably the one I had the most game time on. Um, and I remember when that came out, and I had pre-ordered it, and I went to go pick it up, and it was rated M, so I was too young to get it alone. I had to have a parent with me, and I like went up there, and I'm like trying to pick up the game, and like I paid for the whole game already. Like I didn't, and the cool thing is my birthday is in November, so the new Call of Duty came out every November, so I always had birthday money around the time that any of the Call of Duties came out.
Always had Call of Duty.
Always had Call of Duty, yeah. So I was just like, okay, let's go up there and get it. Like, made my mom drive me up to the GameStop down the street or whatever, and we get there. And keep in mind, I'm like a multiplayer only guy at this point. Like, I really didn't dabble in I had played the campaigns, but I wasn't like I'm buying this for the campaign. I was buying it so I could play it with my friends on Xbox Live, and
Right.
I remember getting it, and I was about to buy it, and the GameStop employee starts telling my mom about the no Russian mission. You know, the one where you just like open the
Oh
elevator and
yeah.
you just start gunning everyone down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, motherfucker. And I was like, you asshole, I'm just trying to play. I had to like convince my mom that I was like only gonna play it online, which like you could make an argument that like the shit you hear online is probably way worse than that one
Yeah,
mission in
yeah.
the
If you
multiplayer. Like, yeah. So I was just like, no, I'm just playing it online with my friends, mom. Like, I'm not gonna do the mission or whatever. Which also in the campaign, you could have opted out of the mission too. I don't know why the guy didn't say that to her, but whatever. I'm still mad about it. And
I'm
so
still
I
mad
can,
about it.
yeah. But I had already paid for it, so she didn't really have a choice. She just like let me have it. She's let me get it. So I went and I played it, um, and I had told this story to one of my friends like a month ago or a few weeks ago, and they were like, "That's crazy. The guy from The Yard, who's like Ludwig, apparently like has the same exact story as me." And they thought I copied it from him, and it made me mad that I thought I fabricated it. Anyways, I didn't fabricate it. This did happen. And yeah, so I got the game, and I remember playing Modern Warfare 2 and like Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 3. And funny enough, me and a couple of my buddies made YouTube videos, like gameplay commentaries on the game because that was like the whole buzz at the time. It was like all those guys getting big who were just like posting commentaries of Call of Duty. Um, and yeah, so we made a bunch of videos. And I think they're privated now, so you can't go listen to a teenage version of me try to talk over my own gameplay. But yeah, they exist, and maybe one day I'll unearth them to the masses and let people listen to me talk back then.
I have my own list of private videos a few years ago, back during when COVID started. Uh, People may or may not know this about Big D, but I've dabbled in some cannabis activities over my life.
No,
And yeah, I know, big surprise here.
no.
They call me Big Dabber, but back when I was going by the name Dayman back then, I started making like these short videos called Dabbing with Dayman, and I made like close to 100 of these little stupid videos of
Uh-huh.
just me doing something silly and then taking a dab. But they're all still on all still on YouTube in my studio. Maybe I'll unearth them someday for the lulz, but I know what it's like to have a private stash. I feel like it's good. It's something you can go back and it's like a journal entry. You can go back and look at it personally and be like, okay, I've learned from this. This is good for me to check in on sometimes, but not everybody on the internet needs to know everything about everyone
Exactly.
else, you know?
If you look back at stuff you've done in the past, even if it's a video or thinking of it, and you like cringe, all that means is you've grown.
Yes. if you look back on yourself and cringe, it just means you've grown. That's hard hitting advice here. That's the kind of stuff that you get on laying it down with Big D here,
Yeah,
Cole. That's good
that's
stuff.
right.
Well, let's bring it back to Counter Strike here. How far? How? I'm assuming you ended there saying that it didn't take long into CS:GO before you started getting better than your brother. What was the journey into getting into competition and like being a competitive player? Did you start noticing you were better than your brother and you're like, oh, maybe I should give this a try?
It was actually with my brother, believe it or not. Yeah, this was back when CEVO, like the two platforms to play Counter Strike that were not like matchmaking back then, were CEVO and ESCA. CEVO was free, and then ESCA was paid, obviously. Um, and then, my brother and a couple of his buddies that he knew in real life, and I still talk to them, you know what I mean? They're still cool. Um, Wanted to make a team, and they were like, "Do you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I think at that point, I was either out of high school or like towards the end of it. And I did sports in high school too, so the competition thing has, especially with Counter Strike, has kind of filled that void of high school sports for me, in the sense that it's some level of competition and something that I hate losing more than I like winning type of deal. And I think that is kind of what has always kind of kept me around in terms of the competitive scene in Counter Strike. So I remember playing Open on ESCA with my brother and his friends, and I think that was season 27, 28. So I think we're in like season 53 now, so it's been a long time. And I remember that was back when they didn't do map vetoes for the matches. It was every week you had two matches, and they were on one map that the website said. So one week it was Inferno, next week it was Cobblestone. I remember we played
Right.
Cobblestone before Cobble got removed, and I remember playing officials on that in ESCA Open, and then Mirage or whatever. And I remember, I was probably like a C plus or a B minus player on ESCA at that point in terms of rank, and Face It wasn't even on my radar at the time. And I remember the first match we played was against a bunch of rank G and rank S players, who, like, at the time, like, if you were rank G or rank S, you were just like a pro, right? Or like at least at that level, right? So
Right.
I was like, first off, why are these guys in open? I have 1,100 hours in the game. Um, and obviously you get smashed, but it was kind of like a rite of passage, I think. And that was like, I think my first season of Open, we went like 6-8 or something, and I had like 75 damage around, but that was like my first exposure to the competitive scene outside of just like matchmaking and stuff. Um, and then I think I went from that and I started playing with a couple of guys that I met. Oh my god. I met this guy who I still talk to this day. I'm actually going to meet up with him because he lives out near Detroit. I'm going to meet up with him at the Windsorland. I've never met him before, but I've known him for a long time now. It's probably been like six years or something. And
What's his
I was
name?
in Drewby.
Okay.
Yeah. He he was in this hub that I was in. I was subscribed to this guy on Twitch who was doing like CS community hubs, and I joined it, and Drewby was in it, and he basically like poached me from the hub and picked me up to play on his team. Um, and he was probably the first person I played Counter Strike under that like I grew considerably under as a player. So yeah, that was a while ago, and then as time's gone on, I've kind of climbed up the ranks and gotten better and better, I guess. But yeah, that was probably how it started. Like I said, I mean, like it started with me trying to be better than my brother, to my brother acknowledging that I was better than him and trying to get me to join his team. And then eventually my brother started doing his work stuff, and he was like, all right, I don't really have time for this, and I moved on and started playing with some guys I met, you know what I mean, doing random shit on the internet.
And then how long did you play in Open before you soared to the ranks of Advance?
Oh god. Um I played for a while in Open. Actually, I remember making IM with the first team I made IM with were some guys I found on the ESCA forums. They're really cool dudes. They picked me up like
Was it the
they were
Tinderellas?
No, it wasn't. It was God. I think the team name was Sea Urchin Ceviche. That was the name of the team, and I
Ooh,
remember
that
that
sounds pretty good.
the team page didn't say anything on the team bio, but I got an 830 res at Dorsha or whatever, and I think that was a reference to something I hadn't seen before. But I found them on ESA forums and they picked me up like a day before the season. So I think my tryout was an official for them. Like I got added to the roster. They're like, hey, we have a match tonight. Can you play? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I played, and I think we made IM that season, and then everyone on the team quit immediately after we made IM. I was like, okay, that's chill. And like they were all cool guys. Like none of them played afterwards. I've like kept up with them. You know what I mean? Like I was like, did they just like hate me secretly? And like now that we made it, they don't want to. They were like, damn, we made it with that guy, but we hate him, so we're just gonna like go quit, tell him we quit and play in other spots. But they never did. And then I think I played an open with some friends again after that. Um, Timeline's a little fuzzy, but I basically after I left Drewby, because he was like my IGL that I had played with a bunch, and after I left him or he left or whatever, I think he got picked up by a main team or something, which is what happened because he was really good, and he got poached by main team if I remember correctly by when we were in open, and after he left, I started IGLing, and when I started IGLing, that was probably like my biggest growth as a player, because it just kind of made me think of the game holistically and not what's immediately in my direct screen. You know what I mean? It makes it impossible to tunnel vision if you're IGLing, and my stats just went up crazy. Like mechanically, I probably got better, but I didn't really feel like I did. It just felt like I had a better grasp of what was going on all the time. And I went from like a 75 ADR open player to like a 100 ADR player while IGLing. So like my stats went up, and I'd kind of gone and you know, after I had a couple like good open playoff runs where we fell like a couple maps short or whatever, but my stats were really good. I just went into forums and started looking for IM teams. I got picked up by an IM team, and then we made main with that IM team, and then once we made main, your buddy Tawa killed my first main team.
Oh no!
I don't know if you want the lore on that. I will divulge, but
Is it light and playful?
yeah, it's light and playful.
Okay, yeah, let's hear the lore.
So funny enough, Drewby again. This is a common guy coming up in our thing, but he was friends with Tawa and the whole Peakers Advantage group because it was Davey on that team. Mm-hmm. And you know, Drewby was friends with them, so I by association became friends with them. I was known as a Drewby adjacent. That was my role in their thing. But that season, I think Peakers Advantage, Davey was playing the season in Maine with Tawa. I think Ploki, Salsa, and like one or two other guys. I don't remember exactly. I think Drewby might have been playing too. I don't remember. It's fuzzy. And we got matched up against them in league in Maine, and you know, no disrespect to Tawa, but on that roster he was probably their weakest player. So we got Dust 2 against them. I remember this part pretty clearly. We played Dust 2 against them, and we knew Tawa was the B anchor on Dust on CT side, and I was just like, we're just gonna go B every round, and we're just gonna kill Tawa, and we're gonna win. Tawa had like 140 ADR against us. Just like complete farm job. Like it was like he was just shitting on us at B, and we ended up losing. And I think one of our players, I remember yelling at one of my teammates in the middle of it because, God, I remember this distinctly too. It's crazy how like bits and pieces are super vivid and the other parts are fuzzy, but one of my teammates before, we did a scrim before the match on Dust 2, just to get ready. And we had like kind of we had been talking about like kind of flirted with the idea of CT side doing spawn based or like just having deady spots on CT side. And we decided we wanted to do deady spots. So I told the guy, I said, hey, Tyler, who's one of my teammate Tyler, I said, hey, Tyler, you're an A player, whatever. And he said, okay. And you know, like the first gun round, of our CT side, and this was after our T side where Tawa is just dominating us, right? So like things were already kind of on edge. The first gun round, the A player who had explicitly asked me where he was playing before the map, just ran mid and died instantly. And I just said, and I took a pause after the round, and I was like fuming, and I was like, Tyler, what happened? He's like, I died at mid, and I said, you're an A player, Tyler, and I like yelled it at him, and we end up losing the match, and I think we probably the whole team stayed in call for like an hour afterwards, just like yelling at each other, and one of my other teammates recorded the whole thing, like the whole argument, and like sent it to me the next day, and he's like, hey, I recorded all of that, and I like ended up listening to it, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, it's like that's insane that we sounded like that, and that was so that was what killed the team. So, you know, Tawa life gamed and killed my team, and you know, that's that story. And then I didn't end up getting back to main or main plus again until Fat Guy had reached out to me because he had an open project. I had taken a couple seasons off, and then he had an open project. And one of the IM teams I was with had Wilson on it, and Wilson was one of my, well, I guess not current, but last couple seasons he's been on Amped with me. But Wilson reached out because I had played with him on an IM team briefly, and he said, hey, I need a guy to fill a roster spot, like on kind of short notice. The guys are cool, and they were playing in open, but he said they got main experience. They're trying to just make a deep run in playoffs or whatever, so if you want to come, you know what I mean, they need a guy to fill the spot. I was like, yeah, sure. So I came and I played, and I vibed pretty well with them, and that was my first experience to Fat Guy. So I played on a team with him when we were in open, and then we made a pretty deep run in playoffs. I think we were one series short of making main from open, so we went to like high IM. But Lucas ended up taking an offer from a main team the next season. And then I took the IM roster and filled it, and we made IM playoffs and made a decent run, but ended up getting bounced out. And I think I ended up taking another break after that. And then Lucas got a roster in main and invited me to the main roster. And then that died right after that. And then the next season we just decided to go again, and with a whole new roster, but me and him as the two core, and filled the rest of the five out. And that was the first iteration of Five Fellas.
Five Fellas, one of the first teams I ever casted for 2.5 years ago.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah. So that was the first iteration of Five Fellas. It was me, Dirty Dan, True Redux, Dax, and Fat Guy. That was the original five of the Five Fellas. The first season, and that season was a lot of fun, man. We had one of our guys, Voltage, who he wasn't on the team, but he was friends with all of us. I mean, he basically ran it with us. He helped run the socials on it, and did like graphics for free, just like on his own, just because he wanted to. And the graphics were like really good quality. And then I paid out of pocket for LCA broadcasting that season, just because I just wanted the games to get cast, and I had some extra money, so I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And we ended up getting bounced out of playoffs a lot earlier than we wanted to. So that blew. And then Dirty Dan left. True Redux had a kid. So he was like, yeah, like I can't commit to this anymore. We were like, screw you, Redux, and having kids or whatever. And we picked up Blocky, and then we picked up Bones, who I've been with Bones ever since then. And then that was the season, I think, where you were casting us that season, where we had Bones and Blocky, and we made advance that season. I remember we got bounced into lowers, and I think we played the number 1 and the number 2 seed in lowers on our way to making advance in main, from main. I remember we had to play number 1 and 2, and we beat them both, and that was how we made advance. And you know, once we got there, we were like, yeah, we're here, we're in advance. So I've had some roster shuffling since. I think the only 2 people from that roster that had made it up until the end of this season were me and Bones. Everyone else is kind of We've gotten replacements or swapped in and out, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, that's the long story of how I went from open to advanced. It took me a lot longer than some people, but we got there.
Well, you never give up, never surrender. I think one of the stupidest
Yeah.
things in esports is listening to people say, "Oh, well, they're too old to be competing." Shut the fuck up. I have been playing video games twice as long as you have been alive. I know how they work. They're ingrained in my body. Are there like when it comes to some millisecond reaction times at the highest levels? Absolutely, there is going to be some difference in some age, but there's also wisdom in age, and you can play these things forever and ever. We're gonna get Erab, the 72-year-old IM player, on here at some point to
Oh
prove that.
yeah, yeah.
We will be talking to him at some point, hopefully. Erab, if you're watching this, please come join us on Laying It Down with Big D. But yeah, dude, don't give up on that type of stuff because here's your segues have been perfect here from telling us your story about Counter-Strike into competing with your brother, and now all the way to the Five Fellows qualifying for Advanced, where I believe you may have met a certain Mr. Tuna and
Yeah.
got picked up by Amped as well, and now you've been competing with Amped for 2 years now, right? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that was a twofold part to that actually because we met Tuna at a LAN in Cherry Hill in New Jersey. It was the first LAN I'd ever been to, and I played like out of my mind at that LAN. I remember I was playing some of the best Counter Strike I'd ever played, and I remember it was because I was coming out of like a shit week. I think it was right after I think it was right after New Year's, and I think like the week leading up, I had been like I was really sick for like a week, and then I was like okay again, and then like the day after Christmas, like someone smashed my car window the day after Christmas, and then right after that, I think I got dogged at work. I worked like 11 days in a row or something because people weren't showing up and doing what they're supposed to do. And all of that for me to take a few days off and go to Cherry Hill with the it was the Five Fellows roster, and it was
With
actually
the
with Wilson.
fellas.
Yeah, it was minus Redux but plus Wilson, so it was me, Fat Guy, Dirty Dan, Dax, and Wilson, um, and or Cody is his name. His first name's Cody, but he goes by Wilson. And that was our five. And I remember I just was like, I was like, honestly, like at that point, I was like, nothing could have gone worse for me. I was like, I'm just here to have fun and play at the LAN, and I played pretty well, but we had pretty not great showing, and we ended up losing to Amped. It was a Amp team at the time, and they were an IM team. That's when we met Tuna, was at the event, and then Mango, who we ended up picking up a couple seasons later. That was our first introduction to him, and so yeah, it was funny, yeah, because we met Tuna, and that was exactly what happened. We met him, and then the next season we were a main team. We were still Five Fellows at that point, so we were still a main team. Hadn't made advanced yet during that LAN, and after we made advanced, we had kind of put some feelers out for orgs just to see if anyone would give us any like LAN support or whatever. Um, and we already had a previous met Tuna or whatever, and we reached out to him, and the IM team that he was carrying, I guess, died, and we were just kind of like an opportunity, and we already had previous, interactions with him. So he was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So that's how the Amped Advanced roster, came out, and yeah, and we've been with him since. And he just announced that they're not carrying any more rosters, which I guess, either he was gonna do that and drop us anyways, but the team kind of went its own separate ways. So you can't fire me, I quit. Um,
Yeah.
But either way you look at it, he's doing his stuff with the next gen stuff, so I'm really happy, and I'm helping him out with that. So I'm really excited to that he's doing that. He's still trying to be involved in the scene. But yeah, that's how we met Tuna, and I can only say good things about him. He's been a superstar from day one, from the first time we interacted with him. So yeah.
I'm gonna get to stay with him and the Take Flight crew up in Windsor. We're gonna have a little party house over there so I'm looking forward to meeting him in person finally, because I've been working with him for a while as well and knowing him online. And I'm really excited about what he's doing. Again, you're nailing these segues here, Cole. My God. Why don't you tell it? Because that I feel like we've got the rich and storied history of how Cole made his rise to power, and
Yep.
and and now let's hear what Cole. So that's where he came from. Now let's talk about what he's doing. So what is the what? Tell us more about the Next Gen Cup and like what your involvement with that is. Like, what do you how important is it to you to be invested in that next generation of Counter Strikers?
Yeah, so I mean, I, Tuna came to our team with the idea towards the end of last season. I mean, he didn't really come to our team with the idea. I think he's had this idea for a while, but I think towards the end of the season, he was like, "All right, I'm actually going to put this in motion." But he was, asking for feedback, what we thought about his idea, and basically his idea was to take. It's very grassroots, and if he watches this and sees it, he can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is my understanding of it, so I apologize if I'm
He
if
watches
I'm
all of them.
Oh, great, great, love
I
that.
hope.
So yeah, I do too. But yeah, if I'm wrong, he can correct me. But my understanding of it is that it's a very grassroots, open and IM team cup only. Basically, he's trying to foster growth and community building with the lower ranked players. So basically, had I gotten the experience to play one of these cups or tournaments in season 27 instead of playing on an open team with my brother and his friends who were getting crapped on by semi-professional players, my growth could have escalated quicker than it did. I got here eventually. Growth's not always linear, but having something like those resources available to me back then might have benefited. How quickly I rose through the ranks, as it were. And basically, like I said, it's open and IM teams only. It's a little tournament. Um, I think there's like a $25 buy-in per team. It's up to 64 teams, and the winner of it basically gets a season of support from Amped. They get to don the Amped name. They get their games casted by whoever, hopefully you. But if not by you, maybe some of the other talented guys in the scene can give it a shot.
You never
Um,
know, baby.
yeah, and they get basically they get mentorship by some players who on paper are more experienced or better or whatever than an open or an IM player should be. So for this first cup, I volunteered to be one of the mentors. Um, so the team that won, I've been talking to the guy that is my mentee or whatever. There's 5 mentors. I think it's me, Rake, and Rake was a coach for Amped. I don't know what he's doing this upcoming season, but he's coached for a bunch of advanced teams. Mads and Jackro, who are from the Nocturnal group, former Revel.
Yep,
They've
we
been in
love
the
Mads
scene
and
for a while.
Jackro.
Yeah, they're real cool. And then Kojimo, who everyone knows who Kojimo is.
We
So
love Kojimo too.
yeah,
Also of laying it. You've got all people that have been on laying it down. You love to see it.
that's right. So yeah, so we're all the mentors for the team that won it. And basically we're just there to help them out, get individually better, get better as a team, and see if they can kind of rise through the ranks. Um, and they won a tournament already in the Amped Cup, so that was they got some potential. And I watched some of the games get streamed, and there's some plays. I'm like, oh, okay, I could work with this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what I'm doing this upcoming season. I'm probably taking the season off. I'm probably gonna not compete. I might sub for Bones or whoever, just mercenary sub for whoever needs me. But yeah, that's my plan for the season. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't gonna compete again. Like I said, I've taken a season off or 2 seasons off before, but when I see clips on Twitter or see my friends in the Discord posting highlights or whatever, I'm like, damn, like that looks fun. Like I want to get in on that. So when I see my buddy get 4King with Big D cast, over the commentating over it, it just gets me hyped. It makes me want to play Counter Strike competitively. So, I that might be in the future, but like I said, this season coming up, I'm just focusing on the mentor stuff and if Tuna has any other stuff, because I know he's planning on doing future cups, and if he wants any help running with that, I've already volunteered my time. If he needs any help from me, I'm more than willing to help him because he's been so great since the jump that I don't want to say I feel indebted to him, but he's a guy that I wouldn't mind doing some stuff for to help him out because he's done a lot for me and the team that the teams that I've fielded on Amped. So
I
yeah.
like that. Well, and you know what, Cole, I think that you should come join me on if you're not playing in OSS season 8, right?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, well, then come hop on a broadcast and provide some color commentary there at some point. I think it's really cool what you're doing, and I think that you'll discover too, uh, like what you're doing actually might in turn make you a better player, right? Like you've taken these leadership roles within your team doing IGLing and you even said when we first hopped on the call, you're like, "Oh, I'm the chattiest person in advance." That means you kind of naturally take that leadership role. So I think giving that experience, having this experience of like doing pure mentorship, this will be yet another you're not necessarily taking a break from Counter-Strike by any means. You're just taking a season off from playing. So I'm really excited to see how it helps you out as well as a player at the end of all of it. But I think it is important to have I love the fact that you guys are doing this just because this topic continues to get brought up, and I'm about now it's my turn to segue here. I'm about to ask you a question. Uh, I think that this topic always gets brought up when I ask this question of we need the people who have made it to the top, even if you're advanced, right? And you're like tier 3 NA professional CS or whatever, and or tier 2 or tier 1, that group of people needs to be able to turn around and invest back lower to create a better foundation for future generations. So I think it's really cool that you're doing that. Now, my segue is what else in North America could we be doing to get our region as a whole onto the world stage? Because I think that it's a complex problem. There's no one simple solution. Otherwise, we'd be doing it if it was simple. Uh, Although Simple's doing it all as well right now at the major. Let's not forget that.
That's the goat. That's the goat.
Dude, it is. I'm loving what we're seeing from him there, and we'll talk about that. I won't keep you too horribly long here, because anyway, I trailing off. Big D's. Hang on, reset. What do you think North America could do to get back on the world stage?
Oh man, I mean, like you said, it's not necessarily a one size fits all solution. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, the reality is you kind of put it pretty succinctly. I think there's not been a lot of support for the growing community, and I think there were like two big things I think that happened that kind of have contributed to this vacuum. One of them were them killing NA Pro League slots. That just like a bunch of orgs who were involved instantly just dropped out. I think Floppy was on one of the teams. I believe it was Singularity. Was the team he was on when they got their Pro League spot dropped. And I don't even think they were an American org, but as soon as that happened, they dropped the team and have not been heard from in the CS scene since, at least not in America. I think they might have done something in EU a little bit ago, but I might be wrong. And so when the Pro League spots got dropped, it was just like, it just torpedoed kind of the tier. It's probably the tier 1B NA scene, but it was like tier 2 overall. And, that kind of happened. And then like shortly after that, Valorant came out, and then COVID, and Valorant, like, I'm not going to say it killed Counter-Strike, but, all the tier 2 guys in NA who were good at Counter-Strike, that couldn't get signed or make any money out of orgs, instantly just went to Valorant and were like the top Valorant players, at least in NA. So all these big orgs now had these, had these spots that they could pay a bunch of players to for the new game. And funnily enough, they also kind of fucked the tier 2 scene in Valorant recently with they franchised, which just doomed the whole tier 2 scene in Valorant, which is why you're kind of seeing a steady flow of tier 2 Valorant guys kind of, if they started on Counter-Strike, come back. Guys like, I think Vanity came back to Counter-Strike briefly. I think he's just doing content creation now. And but yeah, so guys who did that came back, and but what people didn't really talk about was um the vacuum that it left in terms of like the brain at NA. Steel left and was a pro in Valorant briefly. I know he's back now, but you know he was the guy on those Chaos rosters with Vanity and with Zeppa, who I think is still a tier 1 Valorant guy now. I think Leaf and some of those other guys who were like considered at the time up and coming North American Counter Strike talent. Um, and they left for Valorant because there were more opportunities for them. Which, I mean, get your bag. Like I'm never gonna, you know what I mean, shit talk someone for going out for the money. Like shit, that's what we all do stuff for is for some money. And you know when they're going from playing for Chaos in NA, which I'm not even sure. I don't know if they were a salaried org or if they're getting paid a lot. But going from playing for Chaos in NA and Counter Strike to getting signed by Cloud9, one of the biggest North American esports orgs in the world or in North America. You know what I mean? I'm sure they were getting a lot more money playing Valorant for Cloud9 than they were playing on Chaos or Ghost or whoever they were under on in North America. But like I was saying, so you have all these potential up and comers who are now playing Valorant, but then you have the guys who had been responsible for bringing up a lot of that old scene, the young scene. I think Ocean was one of the biggest guys. He was in Advanced, and I remember watching him stream playing Advanced, and it was very clear mechanically Ocean should not have been in Advanced. It was obvious,
Right.
but they won anyways because he had a great mind for the game, and he was molding these younger players. I want to say Automatic played under Ocean. I think Twists did, and Stewie 2K. All played under Ocean. Steel was responsible for kind of, you know, I mean, I don't know if he was responsible for it, but he was the guy that I think got the most growth out of guys like Zeppa and like I said, Leaf, who, like I said, were supposed to be the next guys in North American Counter Strike, until they left the scene. So, you know, that vacuum really hurt the scene in general, because those guys not being there, I mean, that's when you get the other people who have just kind of stuck around in the scene but haven't really had any willingness or you know need to improve, because they're already at that like tier 2 echelon, and it's really hard to break through into tier 1 if you're from North America. So I think, like I said, that was kind of the whole idea with Tuna's whole thing, trying to get people guided and have them get better. But you know, all of this, I've just politicked the shit out of your answer. I haven't actually answered your question. I've just been talking. But, you know, in terms of things we can do, I mean, like I said, it's good to have Steel back. And I think what Tuna's doing is a great, you know, stepping stone into what we could do further. Because the reality is, you know, the Counter-Strike, and especially some of these communities within competitive Counter-Strike, and the higher you go, it gets more like that. It gets a little cliquey. You know what I mean? The guys have the people have their little friend groups, and I don't want to say they gatekeep at all, but you know, if you're not in with them, it can be hard to find your way in. And you know, I think the community has to be better about being open and willing to accept, you know, younger people, not even necessarily younger people, but just different people and people who you know, might have an opportunity to get a lot better. There's just, you know, it's like I said, it's tough because I know I have a couple friends. I've never been in FPL personally. I have a few friends that I'm pretty cool with in the community that have been, and you know, I'm not going to say names or anything, but there are people that in FPL who the entire time they just shit on the new people in FPL. They're not there to foster a growing environment. They don't say, hey, this is what you should have done. They're not constructive about it. Let's just put it that way. And you know, I'm hearing that firsthand from people that I'm friends with. And you know, that's the type of stuff that it starts with that. You know what I mean? If those people can be like, hey, like, and that's something that I've never really understood, because in FPL you're playing for money, so you want to win the game. So wouldn't it make more sense to want your teammate to play better? Why are we shit talking our teammates when you're trying to make money playing the game? Like, help them get better so you can win money. I don't know. But anyways,
gamers aren't necessarily rational people.
That's a fair statement. But yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something that it kind of starts with that because, like I said, we are supposed to be like in the level of like either you're gonna break through the ceiling or you're just gonna hit the ceiling really hard, and we're not really helping anyone by making the ceiling harder to break through by being an ass or being dismissive towards people you're not familiar with. And I think that can be said about a lot of things in the Counter Strike scene, not just with like FPL and up and comers, but just general acceptance of other people is probably a good start in that frame. So
I think you're spot on there. I think that having a wider, like, we should be happy to have more players come through. I think there's a lot of, I understand why gamers gatekeep their communities because of the fact that a lot of gamers outside of their communities in real life spaces are ostracized, or they're considered antisocial, or they're treated differently. So in these communities, it's that's their safe space. And so I can always understand where where the origin of gatekeeping came from, and especially in the gaming community. But we've got to work past that inkling, because the more people that we welcome into our community, the better, the bigger and better these things generally get. Like, you never know what's going to happen when you open your yeah, I'm not gonna
I
get
mean,
into a giant geopolitical thing here or whatever, but the more that we all work together, the better that things get for humans,
well,
right?
I
Like,
mean, I'm a Valorant hater through and through. I've played thousands of hours, maybe not thousands, but I've played a significant amount of time in Valorant. And oh my goodness,
okay.
I despise the game and most of what it's about. But what they've got right is they try to be as accessible as possible.
Right.
And
Try to.
yeah, try to be. I mean, there are still people who are gatekeeping in that too, as there with anything. But you know what I mean? There's a reason that there's a lot more younger people playing Valorant and a lot more women playing Valorant is because the gameplay and who they're catering to is, you know, it caters more to them.
It's an
And that's
inclusive
why
environment.
correct. And Counter Strike is not always that. And I think part of that too, that also hurts a region like this because it's already super spread out, right, across the country. You're talking, I get 40 ping to Chicago and 90 or 80 ping to LA. And in Europe, I mean, you got people playing in Denmark that are getting less ping to France than I am to LA, and I'm in the same country and they're not. And so the player base is a lot less dense in America. And when you're already not inclusive towards a lot of people, you're hurting your player base. If this game was as inclusive as Valorant was, that would increase the player base, and hopefully out of that player base, it would be you'd have people who would break through the ceiling. It's the same thing with the Olympics. That's part of the reason China and America win a lot of stuff is because they have a bigger pool of people to pull from, right? Talking 300 million people in America and however many are in China, it's like no
A
shit
billion
that
plus.
yeah, no shit. One of them's going to be really, really good at something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it just makes sense. So when you're already limiting your player base by just like saying, if you're a woman, like you're not going to be like we're just going to be a dick. Like good luck. You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, I don't know. It seems like we're just doing that for the sake of doing it. We're not doing it because we think it's gonna hurt. So I don't know why we're not just letting people play it. And if it makes the scene better, it makes the scene better. So I have no issue with it.
We've got to stop being so short-sighted. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna ask you my last couple of questions here. I appreciate you sharing everything that you have so far and joining us here. I have three quick questions here for you. The first one is gonna be about we've got our 8 teams locked in for the playoffs for the major. We got Furia, Pain, Mongols, Navi, Spirit, Vitality, Mouse,
Yes. No, so that was the other one.
and
How many have you
FaZe.
listed? And Phase, yes.
And FaZe. Those are the 8
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah.
What's your pick'ems look like? What have you thought about this major so far? And who's taking the whole thing home?
Fun fact: I've never done pick'ems once. Not a single
Okay.
time have I ever done pick'ems. However, I'm rooting for FaZe just because Elige is NA's last hope. Um, I consider Simple an NA adjacent because he played on Liquid with Elige and Nitro back in the day. Um, so I'm rooting for FaZe. I don't think it's going to be FaZe. If you're just looking at recent results and best team, you'd be foolish to go away from Vitality or Spirit. Vitality's been winning a lot lately, but Spirit hasn't been in, I think, a lot of those tournaments. And I think Spirit were the ones who won the last major, and Donk's just the best player in the world. But top to bottom, man, Vitality is just a scary squad. They don't have a single weakness on that team, and ZywOo is like if you built a Counter-Strike player in a lab in terms of how they played the game, ZywOo would be what you build. He doesn't make wrong decisions ever. It just doesn't happen. I've never seen a player with game sense like him. Like he knows where everyone can be all the time, and he's ready for it. It's genuinely frightening watching him play the game because it's just like he has a third eye. Like yeah. So it's probably Vitality if you had like put a gun to my head and said pick one. In my heart though, I want FaZe to win just because of Elige and Simple. I'm a big Simple fan. So
Okay. Well, I like that. But lead with your heart, but thinking with your head. I like that because I'm Vitality all the way. I'm excited about how Simple has been playing. I think what's been happening with this FaZe roster has been really exciting. This major has been one of the most exciting majors to watch in like years that I can remember. Like it may be the most exciting major I've watched since the Cloud9 win even.
I remember watching that live too, dude. That was crazy.
Oh my god, it was insane. I couldn't believe it. All right, well, I've got my last two questions here for you, and you really get to get on a soapbox now.
Yes.
Actually, I don't have it. My second to last. I was going to ask where your name comes from, but you don't go by a funny name online. You just go by Cole. So we know that your name is Cole. So that
I can give you my Twitch name if you want. That's from that's funny.
What's your Twitch name?
My Twitch name is Mango Terrorist.
Mango Terrorist? Where's that come from?
In middle school, the Call of Duty boys that I used to play with, I was friends with them all in school. I'm still friends with all of them to this day. We would play Xbox together, and our names were we called ourselves the Mango Mafia, and we all had like Mango and then like some like thing after it. Like so, it was like there's Mango. I was Mango Terrorist. There's Mango Dictator, Mango Messiah. Oh, God. One of them was Mango McLovin. That was one of my friends' names. And so yeah, that was the format. It was Mango and then whatever afterward. Mango Godfather was one of them. We had a bunch, and Mango Hitman. That's my best friend. Like him and I have been best friends since we were like 5, and that was his name. So yeah, we were in middle school. We called ourselves the Mango Mafia. We were a clan. That was our clan.
I like that. All right, this is my last question here for you, Cole. We've talked a lot about what it means to like invest in the younger generation, but it's mostly been Counter-Strike related. If you could talk to a younger version of yourself, or the next generation or whatever, what's some general advice you would give them? And it can be Counter-Strike related or esports or just life in general, but what's your big life advice for now?
Oh, the gears are turning. I mean, it was like something I said earlier, I think, and one of the things, if you look back at something you did in the past and you're like, ugh, all that means is you've grown, so that's good. But general life advice, I would definitely just say, keep an open mind and let people do their thing. If it's not hurting you, there's no need to have such a hardline opinion on one thing or the other. Just stay in your lane sometimes and let people exist. In terms of Counter-Strike stuff, I would say buy skins now. By the time you're older, they'll be really expensive. They only go up. The market will not explode ever. It's not like crypto at all. It's just gonna keep going up and up forever. It will never get lower. But actual advice, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. You gotta, if you want to be good, it's a team game. It's 5 players all the time. And if you're in a pug or in a match or in a matchmaking, competitive, premier, whatever, be willing to communicate and play with your teammates and not against them. I've had games where it's just like there's just one guy who had one thing happen to him, and all of a sudden he's just like, all right, I'm just gonna grief you the rest of the game. So now, one person is ruining 4 people's experiences off of one thing. Have a little thicker skin, but also, be willing to work with people, and that kind of comes with the territory. If you're queuing up a pug solo, that you're just flipping 4 coins. So, you know what I mean? Like, hopefully you make some other people's experiences a little easier, and you get some good karma in return, and you win the game, hopefully, and get some elo as well, because, there have been people who show up into pugs and they're instantly combative, and I'm like, why did you do this? Like, there's no reason for you to do this. I've not done anything other than be like, hey, like, why did we do X, Y, or Z? So, yeah, definitely just I would say be willing to work with your teammates, and it's like I said, it's easier to play with them than it is to play against them.
I agree. All right. Well, I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Cole, for joining me, and thank you all for watching. Do you have give us a shout out? Where do we find Cole on online? What are some plugs you got here?
On Twitter, Coley Strike 2, Coley Strike 2, like Counter Strike 2, but Coley instead of Counter. That's pretty much the only place I'm active in the CS scene, really, is there. And then, if you want to hit up my Twitch, it's Mango Terrorist. Like, it's just gonna be that forever. I'm never changing it. So, but yeah, I don't really stream, but I did order some PC parts, and I might dabble soon. So we'll see.
You never know.
Yeah, or like you said, I might hop on a broadcast with you. That sounds sounds fun to me.
Come through.
Yeah. So, I might take you up on that. But yeah, but yeah, shout out to my buddy Drewby. I brought him up a few times, and I know I brought up Mango earlier. I love Mango. He's like my little nephew. So he's gonna. I hope he listens to this and he hears that, and he goes, "Hey Cole, I heard you talk about me on the podcast." I'm like, "Yep, that was me." So he got his shout. So yeah, that's all I got for you. Thanks for letting me come up here and yap. Like I said, I'm the biggest yapper in all of Advanced. So hopefully hopefully you believe me now.
I do. You gave Big D a run for his money. I like that. All right.
That's right.
That is it. Okay, let's